We did have a meeting yesterday. I thought it was a pretty good meeting. We discussed a lot of things, cleared up some things. I think by and large, over half the SMs showed up, and by and large, I think we got a lot of encouragement there. And I've heard from several, and for those that don't know, from the league and from division directors, and we're getting a lot of support. Does everybody support what we're doing? No, but the majority of them do. So we've got a green light to go ahead. Say again, somebody? Okay. Anyway, hopefully I got everybody muted there. I guess I got a presentation to read here before we get started, so please bear with me, and then I'll open it up to everybody's being muted and their chat sessions. Aries broad goal hasn't changed and doesn't really need to. In times of disaster, we do our best to assist government and the public in our communication capabilities. It is when we get into the details that we need to find solutions. Aries' key resource is trained members. Everything we do is labor intensive and requires statistic skills. Excuse me, folks.
Excuse me, Dan, this is Rob Macedo from Eastern Mass Aries SEC. Good evening. Are you sharing your screen, or are you just presenting verbally?
I can. Let me share my screen. That might help everybody.
Yeah, I didn't know. It sounded like you were reading a PowerPoint or a document. I thought it might be helpful to share the screen.
There we go. Okay. Great. Got it.
Yeah, have it here. Thank you so much, Dan, and sorry for interrupting.
No, that's quite all right. Appreciate that. Not at all. Not a problem. Anyway, the key resource is trained members. Everything we do is labor intensive. It requires specific skills. So we need lots of trained people. Our program can't work without them. If you're an Aries leader, do you have all the people you need? Is recruiting and training an important element of your job? In every organization, there is a small percentage of members that are active doers, even fewer members that are leaders. The bottom line is that most of us don't have nearly enough to truly active members to keep the promise we make to our agencies. We need to have enough trained and active members for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, or more. Something to think about. Let's consider training for a moment. Even amongst our most active members, the level of training varies. Some will have ARES 1001, a few FEMA courses, and some might even have Mars and military training, but many will have little or none. Could every Aries member just drop in and operate seamlessly with the Aries group? Yes, with training and skills. Our standard skills need to be strengthened and modernized. We need to build skills for the situations we most likely to encounter. We are told that Aries ECs must have the flexibility to meet local needs. This is true, except for when it comes to basic skills and training. During a disaster is the time to get the job done with proven skills, technology, and procedures. One solution is Aries mutual assistance. This is not new. The concept has been around for a long time. Volunteer firefighters will recognize this as mutual aid. They know they wouldn't survive long without it. Every day, fires are fought by firefighters and equipment from outside areas. The world where mutual aid is essential, everyone must be able to do the same basic things in the same way. With standardization, operations, and mutual aid environment can be cohesive. Everyone needs to be able to use some of the same modes, tools, forms, procedures, and protocols. Imagine Aries responding with learned skills. We will be efficient, effective, and ultimately we will succeed. It is clear we can't be all things to all people and all solutions to all agencies. For example, don't overpromise and underdeliver. Don't say, look at all I can do for you. Instead, ask agencies about their most critical communications needs and look for ways to help them with the resources you know you can count on. Be honest with them and yourself. Talk about what will happen during a real disaster, how you'll need to call for outside help. For example, the invaluable life-saving assistance of the ARRL Force of 50 in Puerto Rico. Above all, find a balance. Our goal is to serve the people and promote amateur radio. Looks like the end of that part, so I will stop sharing my desk if I can find where it's at. Got it up there. Folks, I appreciate you coming tonight. And okay, has my screen sharing stopped? It looks like it has. I will go over here and open up chat. And I will go over here and, well, I'll let you.
This spot is unfair. Not a pump is a stronger and better fighter than I am. I think it's silly to fight.
Okay, I got you muted now where you can unmute yourselves. Sorry for the noise there for a little bit. What we're trying to do here, and what I was just reading to you, is exactly that. We have states, sections, places all over the place. They don't have any disasters. Idaho was one of them. We recently had an earthquake. That was a big thing for us. And it was not big, but not compared to Puerto Rico and what the Virgin Islands get and California and other places. Can we help other people that's involved with that? I think so. Can we train with them? I think so. And on a national scale, I think we could do a lot together. Work together, get to know each other. I like to see this forum or something similar be a part of that solution. I have been told as of today, and a couple of days ago as well, they are this close to hiring the new Aries manager. That guy better be Superman. He's got a big job in his hands. In the meantime, we can do what we could do with Aries, with the same tools, the same marching orders, everything we've always had, but we can do it working together. At this point, I think I want to open up for Q&A and get some discussions going. Okay, Max, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit confused, Dan, but that's the story of my life. In particular, what I'm wondering about is what is this basic training and who does it apply to? What's the common denominator that you're trying to meet? Is it for a national deployment or what exactly? In other words, is it qualifying an individual to be able to go on a deployment elsewhere? Or are you suggesting that every Aries member ought to have a certain base training and then can you spell that part of it out?
From our situation on a national wide thing, I like to keep it to the lowest denominator. I like to keep the training simple and entry-level type of thing. On the individual levels, in the different section managers, and somebody was there is unmuted, Paul. Anyway, I like to, that's where you guys, the section managers, and I don't mean section managers, SCCs, your different sections, you have your own things going, your own training going to different levels. We want to encourage work with that and work across the board with that. How are we going to do that? We're putting that together, and we need your guys' input to how to make it happen. But it needs to be done more on a nationwide level, yet kept local. We've all got the same formula we're working with, and we can work together. Does that make sense?
It makes a little bit of sense. In other words, you're looking to be able to draw from the local folks to be able to participate in other deployments across the country. And in order to be able to do that, there's a subset of those skills that we would call for within each individual counties, for instance, within our section, that they should already have, and you'd be using that as kind of the yardstick of their qualifications. Is that
Okay, Marv, I'm going to mute everybody again, and you know, unmute yourselves there. We're getting. Okay, yeah, that's a basic of it. Most disasters are local. If I have a big earthquake here in Idaho, I'm hardly going to be calling, if I need more people, my section emergency coordinator will probably be calling for help. If he's swamped with, needs more help, they're going to be calling for help from Oregon, Washington, you know, our surrounding areas, and where those people can respond or do something. And sometimes they don't even have to leave their homes to be of help. It depends upon what is needed from them and what the call is for. But yes, to be able to help each other, the ability of it, if we can't, at least we're capable of doing it.
Now, I thought that there already was something in the form of a mutual aid definition in place already. It was either in the 01 or 016 course. I don't remember which one it was because I took them at the same time. But one of those mentioned kind of a scaling up of need where I could reach out to Ohio or with assistance through divisions and be able to reach out to my neighboring states.
You're right. This was not the first attempt. The other attempts haven't taken hold at all, but we've never had the platform to do it with. This is a platform to try to pull that particular last, I think you're referring to, pull that up and make that work. It's a different effort at the same bottom line result. We cannot survive unless we start working together. That's the only way I can put it, and that's what we're trying to encourage.
Okay, thanks. I'll shut up for a while.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. No problem. I'm losing track here. Jim, were you up next? Okay. AJ4NO, Tennessee, are you there?
I am now.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
Okay. One of the lessons we've had over two of the previous presentations, partially through the WinLink presentation, and then when Waterman talked to us about shares, it came across loud and clear that the regulatory environment that surrounds the training that we're talking about, if you're going to aspire to volunteer into your local emergency management environment, you're going to have to match their regulatory environment. And so how do you do that? Well, it starts with that relationship that we've talked about. Phil gave an excellent, it was either Phil or Steve that talked about the formula for interoperability. Relationships are multipliers in that formula. So you have to understand the requirements from your local emergency management circumstance. And then once you understand those, then you can train to those requirements. If you look at what we have in the ARRL or the ARES task book, if you take that task book and you put it side by side with the AUXCOM task book, you'll see the difference between what we expect them to want us to do and what they're going to require us to do. I'd be interested in Marv's comments on this too. I just don't think at this point, it's sort of like the ARRL is the corporate entity. They have a suite of products. One of the products that they have is an emergency radio service. And so you have to ask yourself, where did they reach to get the requirements to make sure that when they design and deliver that product, which turns out to be us doing the delivery, where did we get the requirements so that we could design the right kind of response and the right kind of product? So if we don't understand our customer And I would submit that at this point, a lot of folks still don't understand what they're going to be required to do by their emergency management folks, who again are surrounded by an increasing amount of regulation. And so are you going to ask a volunteer amateur radio operator to go to the Gatlinburg fires with you, for example, and look at all the lawsuits and everything that have resulted from that response? And so here you are as an amateur radio operator, and when the judicial system finally gets down to asking the question, well, did you have that person trained to do this? Can you track their certifications through the system so that you know they've had the proper training to be in that environment performing that task? There's just a lot of angles we haven't really gotten around to discussing about what kind of training we should be doing, who sets the requirements for that training. So just some thoughts that have been going through my head.
You know, those are good thoughts, and you're right on. However, there's a difference if you're working within shares, for example. They have a different protocol within, a different set of standards, and it doesn't necessarily require a license to work with them, but it does require that you know what they want to do and do it well. Where we come in from the Aries side of it, we have right now, we have training that is standardized to a certain degree, but it's all it's got to be updated. It's outdated. It's got to be updated and modernized. And I think I covered that in my little thing here. And we've got to work on that. We got to work with the league on that, because we are not meeting all the goals that are needed by their agencies. We have to analyze when we're talking to a state agency, a county agency, whoever. What are their needs? How can we best serve them? And how, and that's what we're going to look for, and we got to train for. Does that help you at all?
I would suggest that anyone who's interested in seeing where we might have areas to focus for our training, take the two task books and lay those out next to one another and look at the difference in those requirements. That is the ARES task book and the AUXCOM task book.
Okay, good suggestion. If I answered your question?
Okay. Yes, it was more of a comment, I guess.
All right, that's fine. Greg, you want to take the whirl here?
Yeah, thank you, Dan. It appears we're having pretty much a nationwide meeting, and so far it seems like the conversation is talking a little bit about questions that are only going to be able to be solved on a local or statewide level, because every agency is going to have its own requirements. And although the ARES task book refers to some courses that have some terribly outdated material in them, I think ARRL has been exceedingly clear about baseline training. And I'm going to make an assumption that most, if not all, the people on this call are probably ARES leadership of the emergency coordinator above. And so my question would be, and choose it to be rhetorical if you want, or do a poll to find out the real answers, but I would certainly hope that everybody on this call, if they're an ARES leader, has already accomplished their level 3 membership requirements and the training for that, because that was supposed to be done by the end of February of this year, and we're already in July. So it seems to me that if we don't lead by example, by making sure that everybody in a leadership position has met those requirements, then it's hard to expect the level 2 members, which I would refer to as deployable members, to have gotten all their training done. Yes, I understand that EC016 was painful, but you get through it and you start there. And like Jim mentioned, it's tied intrinsically to relationships. So in our particular case, in my jurisdiction, we have a great relationship with the deputy emergency coordinator for our county. And we meet with him quarterly. We sat down with him. I showed him the ARES training task book. He liked everything that was in there for requirement. He added about 3 things for basic training. And then we added about half a dozen things to demonstrate our specific capabilities with the radios in our radio room at the EOC and also with our Go box. And one of the things we're going to have to do is take that Go box over to the shelter. We're going to have to take that Go box over to our local police department, be able to demonstrate that we can, each individual can take that to the location where it might get deployed and be able to get it there, set it up, and get on the air in a reasonable amount of time. So to me, the Aries training task book is key. And then relationships is if the same level of importance, if not greater. Because even if you don't have the training from the task book, if you've got a great relationship with the agency you're serving and you can somehow demonstrate to them that you meet their requirements, you're golden. So again, I would hope that everybody in this group, if their ECs are above, have completed their training through level 3 so that they can rightfully encourage their deployable members to get the training done for level 2. And if you haven't done that stuff, it's pointless to talk about Oxcom and all these other requirements that are going to be jurisdiction dependent. I'll be quiet now.
Okay, Greg, appreciate the comments. I would venture to say, but almost ready to will in the bet, that a lot of them do not have the requirements. A lot of them have not completed that. We certainly have that situation at the DEC and EC level. It's a goal. We should be, but that doesn't mean we are. We work with a volunteer organization. That could be a problem, and that's what some of the things we need to address is how to encourage that. I got a note here from Mike Ritz, W7BO, and he's saying that, I'll just read it up here. He's saying that there's, he's got several notes maybe. Yeah, he does. I'm going to bypass a little bit, maybe call up him to talk here in a moment so that he can see what he's got to say there. He's going out to the troops there. Paul, you want to take it? W1PJS?
Sure, Dan. I think we're all on the same page. There's, we all are talking about the jurisdictionally or geographically dependent training, but there is a baseline training, and it's not just about the FEMA courses or the ARRL courses or what have you, the online training, but also as I'll forget his name now, but I think the guy just before me, or two guy, but the Go Kit, how do you deal with that? Okay, how do you deal with if you're deployed to a shelter? How do you deal with trying to be a relay station up on a hill when you have to get a message from one point to another? Okay, and on VHF you can't do it line of sight, so you need a relay station, which could be a repeater, of course, but could also be a station. So there's base training, that is applicable across the board. Everybody needs to know how to set up an antenna in the field or equip a shelter with communications. Everybody needs to know, and there's a list of those things. The task book from the ARRL has a bit of that. I think it needs a little more, evolution to it to include the hands-on aspect of the training. And I think what we're aiming for, and you can correct me, we don't, I think, have this formalized yet, but I think what we're aiming for from the national perspective, of standardization, is to have everybody with the base skill, okay, that is going to be necessary across the board. You're always going to have to go staff a shelter and provide communications from there. You may have to staff a hospital and provide communications from there, but you're going to have to be able to provide communications from one point to the other point, whether that now involves a relay station like a net, So that's a skill, you know, and these skills are all going to be standard pretty much across the board. How you do it, you know, whether you use a ICS 213 digitally or how, if you do voice or, you know, what have you, these things are still across the board. Now, in my state, you know, we'd have to go, or section, we'd have to go and customize that or enhance that a bit so that it meets the requirements of the state EMA or the, you know, the regional EMAs or what have you, or the Red Cross or other of the VOAD groups. So I think, you know, yes, there has to be specific training to your area, but also there is generalized training. And I just wanted to point that out, that you know, I don't think there's a big divide here between, you know, my jurisdiction requires Oxcom. Okay, but it also requires that my guys know how to go out and set up a portable station at a shelter. You know, it requires that they can do that at a firehouse or ride along in an ambulance, like we had people doing in Puerto Rico, or set up NVIS over to get, you know, some, whatever it is, there's going to be baseline skills. Level one, you know, probably won't have a lot of those, and they'll need to get those online courses and what have you first, and then they can participate. And I think what we're doing as a national effort is to try to get some hands-on training that's consistent across the board, some online training that's consistent across the board, that we can then say, all my level 2 guys can do these things. What does my agencies that I serve need? That's very specific, and I'll have to adapt, you know, or enhance, I should say, all that baseline training to accommodate the local need. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that, you know, we seem to have, I'm hearing here a lot of discussion as to, you know, my area versus your area will be very different. From the enhanced level up, that'll be true. From a baseline level, I think they're consistent. You always have to have these basic skills. You have to know how to use your radio. You have to know how to set up a field station at a shelter or wherever that may be. You have to know how, you have to have certain people that can qualify to go inside the EOC and operate there. You have to be able to field these resources, what you know, FEMA might call resource typing. We need to have those types, and we need to know what they are, who can fill those, and move up specifically in our jurisdictions, you know, or with the VOAD groups, the Red Cross, you know, United Way, whoever is, Salvation Army, the Southern Baptists, whatever service we're providing to those other partner groups, you know, will be somewhat generalized, but then also specific to the region. That's my comment, Dan.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Lee, are you there? Can you read some of these comments?
Yeah, give me a second here. There was a comment. Let's see. First of all, do you want to talk about where the presentation came from tonight?
Yes, we can do that. The president, I'm sorry that I didn't acknowledge this earlier. Dave Coulter, if I'm pronouncing his name right, WA1ZCN, was very instrumental in the program that I read tonight. He sent me his that he had prepared for a seminar coming up. We took that and took pieces of it out, added and max to meet our needs for tonight. But the base of it came from him, and I want to give him credit for that. He's a assistant section manager for New Hampshire, Aries. He's been involved at lots of levels. He's very knowledgeable and has lots to offer. And as he did to help us out with this presentation tonight, so I want to make sure he's acknowledged.
Yeah, thank you. I think he was going to be the original presenter for that, wasn't he?
He was. he was supposed to get some, he had his commitment tonight. And that's when we decided to redo this thing, go about it. After we'd gotten most of the way through this thing, was proofreading it, we found out that he was able to join us tonight at the right time. He could have been the presenter at that point, but we already accomplished what this other thing was, and there's more to what we wanted to say.
All right, thank you. All right, a lot of the comments are based around the task book and what role does the task book play. One of the comments, fairly down the list, does anyone know of any agency that requires ARRL MCOM classes or ARES task book? I've never heard of one, but every agency I know of requires multiple ICS courses. And I'm sorry I'm not giving credit, but I didn't scroll up far enough. Phil, W4PHS.
Yeah, that was my comment. I'm involved. Steve and I are both involved with both our county, Williamson County, Tennessee, and also Tennessee Emergency Management Agency. In fact, Jim Snyder is part of the same group, and we are part of their official communication reserve team. In the case of the county, we actually qualify for workman's compensation. We have key cards for the facility, both facilities, Tennessee Emergency Management Agency and our county facility. We have regular meetings. We are issued Motorola radios by TEMA. So we're integrated in. Neither one of them or any other organization that I've ever heard of, or agency I've ever heard of, asks for, requests, or even knows what an ARRL or ARES task book is. But both of them have extensive lists of ICS training courses that are required. ICS is a government mandated requirement for participation in incidents. If you're going to be an official participant, you need to fit into the ICS organization, and you're going to have the training that comes with those courses.
Okay, I appreciate those comments, and you're right. Oh, Kenny.
I have a comment on Phil's comment.
Okay, could you raise your hand, please?
His hand is up.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I agree with Phil. Of course, I'm in Tennessee with Phil. And to partially answer his question, one thing I can tell you is that in one district, Aries district in Tennessee, that due to the efforts of the district emergency coordinator, who has met with EMA directors in all the counties that will allow him to talk.
We had to freeze their frame.
Tennessee Reserve, Tennessee Internet.
Oh, Tennessee Internet. Are you back with us, Bill?
Yeah, I was. I thought somebody was wanting me to hush.
No, you just cut out.
No, I just stopped. Okay, but the bottom line is that the emergency managers in District 9 in Tennessee have been shown the ARES task book, as have the people who run the State Department of Health communications with the hospitals. And all of those people are now requiring that people that operate in their environment have the ARES task book filled out to certain levels. They want people trained to the ARES task book. So yes, that is taking on, and that is spreading from Upper East Tennessee and hopefully on down. Over.
One quick comment, Bill. Do you find yourself personally, is that sufficient for what you expect out of your operators?
Well, I'm ASEC that includes Upper East, and yes, I do, for one reason. They're the agencies that we're serving, and if they like it, and if they want it, and we provide it, then we're good to go. I hope that made sense.
It does. It does. And that's part of the thing. We have to be mindful to what the agencies we're serving, what their needs are, and be able to meet those. That doesn't take away from the basic skills that are part of the whole program. Tom, you want to, well, okay, before we go any farther, Lee, you got a couple more?
I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to read the chat in a minute, so sorry
Okay,
about
well,
that.
while you're doing that, let's hear from Tom. Tom, you go ahead and take it.
Yes, sir. My audio okay?
Yeah, you sound good.
Just a couple of quick comments. Hi, everybody. So a lot of the comments so far are useful in a local environment. Yeah, you got to know how to work your stuff, and you got to know how to work across the county, and you got to have some basic training to whatever the county or the local group requires. However, you have to also recognize that training that is mandated by a corporation or something like the ARES, which is not an authority having jurisdiction, that is federal, state, and down to the county level. They're going to require the upper level of training. And so if in my local county something happens and they need mutual assistance from the next county over, that's perfectly okay. That's worked out between the locals, however they want to do it, it's just fine. However, if it is an incident of some kind, a big storm or a hurricane or whatever it might be, that that requires a higher level to be involved, the state to be involved, or even still at the county level. When they get overrun or run out of people, and a lot of counties across the nation are like some of our counties here, they got the emergency manager, but also the fire marshal, and 3 or 4 other hats he wears and she wears. And so they got 5 or 6 people. About the 3rd day, everybody's worked 24 hours. You can't do it forever. So they look up the line and say, send me an overhead incident management team. And most states have that have a capability to do that. And so they get mutual aid people, either state employees or other counties, whatever around, and they build a team up and they send them in there. And so the first thing you see is that, at least in North Carolina, you find that the incident management team has a log chief, a log person, a plans person, chief could be a chief typically, all the basic groups. They also have a COML, and the COML is legally communications unit leader, and that's an AHINT COML, and we've got about 60 of them in North Carolina, and we've trained about another 130, I think, that are working on that level, that like to move up to that level. So whoever comes in there is legally responsible to the COML. And that means they're not going to let you in there unless you meet some very basic standards. And those standards are going to be NIMS ICS compliant, demonstratable. And we have a database here. The state has a database, and they have a copy. The North Carolina Emergency Management has a copy of all the certificates because they exchange that data with FEMA. And I have one. We have one as well. I have a copy of the certificate. And so if there's a requirement for an amateur radio person to go someplace or do something beyond the level of that initial response in that area, then the COML is going to make a request through the state system or through some system, and we're going to have to respond to that. And we're not going to send somebody in there that we can't send somebody in there legally that just can work on a handheld and that's about it. They're going to have to meet some standards. And beyond that, it may very well be that the amateur radio person that comes in there is not needed at that moment in time to jump on the radio and start talking to a bunch of people. It may be that they're bringing that person in so they have that capability, demonstrated capability. And it may also be that while that person is sitting there and the COML is busy talking to leadership or to other people, they may hand this person a 205 and say, have them fill this out and take care of this for me. I got to run to a meeting with the emergency manager. So you're going to have some basic skills. And I also want to lay one more layer on this. When you're talking about ARES, MAT, and things like that, that could be within a state. It could probably be made to work within a state as long as people are adequately trained. And the authority having jurisdiction is aware of that. But beyond that, state to state, the likelihood of Tennessee SEC from Tennessee or somebody over there, amateur radio level, being told to bring as many people in here as you can find and put them to work, it isn't going to happen. There's going to be standards across the boundaries, and the word that folks that work in this environment know what is EMAC. And while FEMA has this rule that says you can't bring a volunteer across with EMAC, that is already changing in 3 or 4 states, simply because the Oxcom side of the house works and is engendered by and reports to and trained by authority having jurisdiction, and the 509, which recognizes that, is in the hands right now of the FEMA NQS, National Qualification System, and it's administrative only. If it wasn't for the pandemic, it would be over with. It would be finished. But it is an EMAC resource. So I think we should have a lot of real reality brought into this that says that in case now Oscar, I see Oscar's picture up here, and Oscar needed help down there, and the Red Cross filled that. That's an ESF 6, not ESF 2. That's not emergency communications. That's Health and Human Services. That's something else. We can certainly fill that, and with the Red Cross being in charge of that. But for emergency communications, when you're looking at emergency managers and people like that, straight ESF2 stuff, there's a whole lot more than just being an ARES member and a willing participant. You got to have a whole lot more in your back pocket than your car keys. But thanks everybody, and I'll be quiet at this point.
All right, Dan, I do have one from the chat, but we do have several people that have had their hands up for a long time. So I'll do one from the chat, and then we'll go back to the hands. So
okay, sure, go ahead.
All right, so this is KE4LWT, Virginia section. I'm an emergency manager and grants program manager. The standardized training plays a very large part in disaster reimbursement. I can discuss if wanted. Jack, do you want to discuss?
Yes, very briefly, and the gentleman that was just on kind of hit on some of that. One of the keys there is obviously you have to have the training, and this has been mentioned by several people in there. Has to be verifiable, and the organization has to be affiliated, meaning they have to actually be part, for lack of a better way of putting it, part of the chain of command of the local emergency management agency. Usually they'll be embodied in the All Hazards Emergency Operations Plan. Oscar, I was in Prema Division 11, Yabacoa area, and all through there, it was embodied in the Emergency Operations Plan, which means that those ARES members that are operating under the direction of the emergency managers, that time that they put in counts towards reimbursement. During a disaster, there's a cost share, like with COVID-19, it's a 75% cost share, meaning the federal government pays 75%, the local emergency management agency has to pick up the other 25%. If someone is not a trained volunteer, they get reimbursed at the general labor rate, meaning somebody who's filling a sandbag. If they're a qualified, trained individual, they get paid at that training level. In North Carolina, for example, that was at roughly $25.70, if I remember correctly. I'd have to look it up. But, anyway, so they would get reimbursed at that rate. Now, obviously, they're not getting paid. You know, the amateur radio operators are not getting paid. But that $25.70 goes into, say, you have 100 hours. So all that then goes to the offset or to pay that bill for the state. But again, they have to be an affiliated organization, which means that they have to be in the emergency operations plan, and they have to be following the directions of that emergency management agency, and they have to be trained, which is, you know, the ARES task book is already covering a lot of that. And of course, I've seen some people's chats in there, and they're dead on, where there will be additional training that will be required by that local agency. So to get reimbursed, that local agency may have to train people up from those IMATs, but that's but that's not that big of a deal. If you come in with the 90 percentile, meaning you're already qualified at level, ARES level 2, and you're an affiliated organization, then that works. If anybody ever wants to ask any questions about that and how that works, feel free to email me at my call sign at Gmail, and I'll be happy to give you any pointers that you may need on that.
All right. Appreciate that, Jack. I think the point we're looking at here, or trying to look at here, is training. Basically, because I'm with the ARL, although this presentation isn't part of them, this is us working on independent of that. I guess that's the way to put it, with their support, a lot of support. But the thing is training. How many people can each section, how many people can you provide? We have procedures. You just laid it out there, Tom, and the person before. There's procedures, and this has to happen for that could happen. But how many people can we provide under that formula? How many people are actually qualified?
And Dan, I think it's been pointed out that a lot of this is not actually ARES.
Yes.
So somebody in the chat was saying that there are a lot of successful ARES programs.
Mm-hmm. They are, and that's what we're trying to focus on right now. But that is not to exclude the other programs that are being called upon by for amateur radio. What we can address here is the across-the-board training we're talking about that we referred to here. I hope I'm not making the matters worse here. Do we want to take one more? Well, are you ready for somebody from the list there? Lee?
No, go ahead. Go with the hands.
Okay.
They've been up longer.
They have been. Jeff, go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, thanks, Dan. I guess I just want to point out some things. I think a lot of there's a major difference in how ARES works out here in the Midwest as compared to the East Coast and the West Coast. I have counties out here, may have 6 or 7 hams in the county. The emergency management is a part-time job, maybe the fire chief or one of the lieutenants in the fire department. The EOC might be a closet in a fire station. And I've had a lot of resistance since that new ARES plan came out about forcing all this training because they just operate on a good old boy system out here and everybody knows everybody. My 4 metropolitan areas, St. Louis, Columbia, Springfield, and Kansas City, are very well organized groups. They have their training and everything. But you move out in the rural areas of Missouri and some of these other states out here, and it's just these guys are saying, why do I have to do this? Because I just come in with my radio, everybody knows me, and I do my thing, and I don't want to have to sit through ECO 01 or ECO 16. I've had 2 counties actually withdraw from ARES and form their own groups only because of the new ARES plan. So that's what I'm facing here in the mid-coast. So when we're talking about nationalizing a standard training thing, a lot of that's just not going to fit these guys here in the Midwest because they don't operate that way. I mean, my county here in St. Charles County, which is part of Metro St. Louis, we just built a new $32 million EOC. At that time, I was on staff part-time since I retired from my real job a couple years ago. We built a beautiful radio room with 2 HF rigs, 4 VHF rigs, a WinLink gateway and everything. And we're well equipped along with a communications trailer here. But that's not the norm here in the area. And even ARES is written into the Missouri State Emergency Management Emergency Operations Plan. And as part of that, even Missouri State Emergency Management only requires any volunteer participating in an event to have 100 and 700. And that's it. So I'm getting an awful lot of pushback about the requirements for all this training because they're saying, we just don't use it out here. So that's one of the reasons why I'm concerned about dictating a standard nationalized training system, because I just get so much pushback from it. I'm just, I'm tired of arguing with these guys. I mean, I have all my training. I did the PDS series, I've ComL, ComT, all that stuff because I was part of emergency management for a while. But that took a lot of work and they paid me to do that too. So, but to get a volunteer to do that, I just have enough trouble getting everybody to do 1, 2, 7, and 8, which I agree with is whatever to do. And another interesting thing, Oxcom has always been brought up. State of Missouri won't even teach Oxcom. They don't agree with the national version of Oxcom. And because I was arguing with them, when are we going to start teaching some Oxcom? Because everybody's saying, let's do Oxcom. And the state of Missouri won't officially teach it. So, we're totally different here in the Midwest compared to the two coasts. And that's my 2 cents.
No, that's fine, Jeff. You're not alone there. It gets down to what do your volunteers want to do. There's plenty of room for people who with no training or very little training. There's, especially in those kind of communities where they need to have the hands be the eyes and ears for the police department because it's really thin on that. They need to be the eyes and ears for their fire departments or their forest service because they, and that isn't passing traffic or anything. That's serving a whole different function, and they serve well. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We need them and always will. But if they want to participate at the message handling and the higher levels, they're going to have to be trained. And I think that's what we're looking at. Idaho's just like what you're saying. It's a lot like what you're saying. We do have Oxon training. We do have other things going on, but we've got counties that don't want anything to do with it beyond go off and have a nice meeting at like a club meeting. But they're there and they can be utilized in their own way.
Okay, one from chat. Larry, W4NOE, Tennessee, he's got a level of frustration that attempts at training seem to fall on deaf ears. Training needs to be made available to new members. It would really help to encourage the new members to take part, but only if they are mentored along the way.
Yes, that's a dual function thing. I would like to see, we have some things going on right now we're trying to develop so we could have a national-wide level of training for the new guys. And sometimes the new guys isn't so new. They just haven't done it before. But get them on board, get them going, and then get them also involved with their local mentors. Some of them don't have mentors. Some of them, like was just commented, they're out in the boonies someplace, and they don't have a lot of people to rely upon. So they have to have other resources. But we need to give them those tools. We need to start them out there. And we need to be able to give them mentoring services. I prefer they work with their clubs, with their Aries or whatever they're with for those. But where they can't or won't, whatever the situation is, we need to be able to provide that so we can move them along and get the more we get people involved, the more we plant those seeds, the more seeds we plant, the more possibilities we have of new people being very useful. They all of a sudden see a value that they want to get involved. And that's what we're kind of looking for. Okay, Stan, do you want to take it?
Yeah, sorry, had to get my unmute button. I was clicking the wrong one. So I have a couple of 3 questions, one for you and comments on a couple of topics as we've been going through here. I'll be brief. The question I have, number 1, is who is they? You say we're putting this together, or what? Who is that? Are you saying the league is putting it together? Are you saying this group of people on the chat are putting it together? Is that separate from the league? And how do you reconcile the two together if that's the case? Second, my comment about the training is basically what everybody else says. I like Missouri because we're kind of the same way. We've got some really low populated counties, but we are enforcing the NIMS, the 4 magic NIMS courses as basic training. You got to have it. That allows, you to be sent to another county if that's the case for ARES MAT. It allows you to work, the way we say it is if you intend to work inside an EOC environment, you will have the 4 NIMS courses. I think that's a baseline for the only baseline I've seen so far that would be roughly applied nationally because it's the same language all across the country. The league is going to have to buy into ARES MAT and all of the training. I say that because I've had a long-standing debate / argument / this is nuts with the league about it started back at Hurricane Sandy. You can't tell me those New Jersey guys that worked months on end wouldn't have appreciated having the cavalry come over the hill going, hey guys, we got this, go take care of your families. But the league refuses to do that. And all you get is a Pelican case full of radios, some of which may or may not be programmed. I think we have more to offer than that. My surrounding states from Ohio all have verbal agreements. You need me, you call me, the paperwork will follow. If we don't have that kind of orchestration through the league, we're going to do it ourselves. So I'm not opposed to, my first question might seem like I'm opposed to something outside of the league. I'm not. The final thing is that ARES training, the EC courses and the task book, we're not using the task book in Ohio. The ARES courses are pretty much like a note from your mother. Nobody cares. The agencies are the ones that set the standards. And if we do the NIMS courses, if an occasion we do an Oxcom course or something like that, that's what we care about. So that's it for me. Thanks, guys.
No, you're fine. I appreciate the comments. In reference to the first part of the who are we, who are they? I started this thing back in the first part of the year with the section managers only. And we started discussing various things that we needed amongst ourselves, the common solutions to take care of some of our problems. And when we entered into the Aries program side of it, it kind of went big. And at that time, the people involved with this, decided to bring in a separate identity, a different part of this thing for the Aries folks, all you guys here. We still got the SM. It's a SM only group that talks amongst each other, work together to try to solve common problems amongst themselves. When we went to the Aries side of it, that included a whole god of people that wasn't involved before. We got some DECs involved with that. We got some SECs involved with this. We've got a mixture of people involved with this. We meet and we talk and we discuss. It's not my program. Like I commented earlier, I found this neat bus and I'm going on a tour. And those that want to come on this tour, let's go for it. And we'll just take it where it takes us. What we see is a need to address some of these Aries issues and try to get some, on a national level, and try to get some things going, working. And a lot of that's around training. Does the league support me or support us? Yes. I have had communications with some directors. I've had communications with the officer of the league. They're very supportive people. We do not directly, I'm not an employee or elected official in terms of being in a position to represent Aries itself. We do have a manager that's very close to being hired. That will be his thing. Aries has heavy baggage. It's had problems for years. He's going to have a big task in making some fixes and making some corrections to the course. And we all got our fingers crossed that this guy can do it. It's going to have to be Superman, but we got our fingers crossed. When he comes on board, we'll probably get some more direction and more things of that direction, that order. But until then, we are just a group of people wanting to get people like yourselves involved in what we know needs to happen. The training is a big part of that. So I don't did I answer your question at all?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely, it does, and that's good because I can count on one thumb how many support or documents or anything else that have come from the league in the years that I've been SEC here. So yeah, we do need to share ideas. My overall concern is that we promote amateur radio and not government radio systems, but that's a pet beef of mine, sorry.
Dan?
Yes, sir.
We need to keep the time, so there are a few hands up yet.
Yes, we do. Let's get picking up the speed here. Scott, I guess it is. Go ahead. You got your hand up?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, fine.
Okay. I serve with Washington State Emergency Management, and I'm the COML that if there was a major disaster, we lost communications. I am the COML for the state of Washington and would coordinate between all of the different EOCs at the county and large city levels and with the state. If I had somebody come to me and say, I have this task book filled out and I've done this training and I don't know them, I can't use them. I'm just going to be right up front. Now, I'm an ARRL member, and I'll just, you know, I'm not anti-ARRL in any way, shape, or form, but it seems to me that in terms of training, we've got the cart before the horse. I'm also, my background is as a professional educator. I've been a teacher for 30 years. And one of the things that you do is you look at what is the end result? What is the end result you want to achieve? In this case, what we want to do, our end result in emergency communications is to provide the people who need communications in the different EOCs with what it is that they need that they don't have. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the goal. And then what we need to do is build backwards from there. Every one of them is going to be running the NIMS ICS system. Every one of them is. It doesn't matter if you're police, fire, or a public school, every one of them by law has to run on that system. If we create a separate system through the ARRL, what we're doing is creating a system that will run parallel and not necessarily be fully functional during an emergency. In Washington State, we've had times when amateur radio groups have tried to come in and help, and in fact, what they did is they got in the way. And it's very possible if people are not all playing off the same piece of sheet music, people are going to get hurt. So training, I agree with you, training is absolutely critical. But as to who sets those training standards and what those goals are and what it should look like, that needs to come from emergency management and not from the ARRL. The ARRL has the one thing that I cannot tell you the number of times I've heard in a major disaster, amateur radio is going to be a key to a critical component to our recovery. And there's no doubt about it. Amateur radio is an absolutely critical component. But the reason it is critical is not because they're able to go out and do a bunch of stuff. It's because they're qualified radio operators. They know how to work a mic. They know how they're technicians. If something breaks, they can fix it. As opposed to somebody, if you have a Motorola that fails in a car and you know, what's that cop going to do? He's got to go back someplace and somebody else has to fix it. Virtually any ham has got his own backup and has the capabilities of doing it. What we really have are people with skills and capabilities to be able to be solid communicators and could fit into a multiple roles. Between the county offices of the different EOCs I have at the counties and say the city of Seattle, the city of Tacoma, the larger cities, we will be using shares, which is WinLink, because it takes us off the ham frequencies because we also need the hand frequencies. Our thinking is not that we're not trying to move away from amateur radio. What we just did is we just doubled the number of lanes in the freeway where we can actually pass message traffic. But what we really need are people who are capable of, who are skilled communicators. That's the number one capability. And the fact that we're using WinLink with shares means that any amateur radio operator that's familiar with WinLink, I can sit down in my state EOC and say, here's the message traffic you need, and that's where the template is, go.
There was a comment. There was a comment from the chat that maybe amateurs should just take the first couple of ICS courses, and that's all they need at this point for training.
They need to, amateur radio operators need to know that when they walk into the state EOC or a county EOC or wherever it is that they are working, that they are functioning within the ICS system, that they are part of the incident command structure.
So you would recommend the 100, 200, 700, 800 as training for amateurs?
Yes. And leadership, when you start getting into positions of leadership, you need to know how to interact with other people, fire, police, the people that are actually going to be in the field responding. One of the things that, and I'm gonna kind of tell on myself here. One of the trainings, I also do writing a lot of the training stuff that we do statewide here in Washington State. And one of the things that I was really interested in seeing us do was windshield damage assessments. Because I thought after an earthquake, we've got eyes out in the field, have the guys go out, do a windshield damage assessment, see what's really going on. My logistics chief looked at that and said, I don't see any emergency managers using it. I said, well, we've got teams out that are looking at floods and those kinds of things. And so it would be good that we actually have this kind of training. And he said, well, I'd like to leave that with the emergency managers. The day that I held off rolling it out, the day that it rolled out was the day the riot started. Imagine what would happen if we had people in the field trying to do windshield damage assessments because that's what they think that they're trained to go do during one of those riots. The whole thought of that absolutely terrified me after the fact, and I'm glad the thing never went out. The number one thing that we need from radio communications are trained operators, people who know the system that I can plug into a place and say, go. And I need to know where they are, and I need to know what their capabilities are. And yes, at the county level, they need to be able to communicate in two different directions. Between the state and the county, we're using WinLink shares, but down at the local levels, between the shelters and the counties, by all means, amateur radio is going to be a critical piece to what's going on. It seems to me that if what we're going to do is to create a reasonable, yes?
I'm going to have to interrupt you here. We got a lot of people. We got to go through them, and time is a factor.
I appreciate your time.
All right. To answer your question real quick, one of the things, you're right. Self-employment or employment where people, even if they're with a known group, are liability. You don't know who they are. That's one of the values of nationwide getting together, working together, knowing who's where, and getting some confidence in those people that you're working with. There's a whole gob of issues. It is huge that we need to resolve, but that part is resolvable. Lee, do you have somebody there? You got anything on that, on your chat group?
No, sorry, go ahead. I need to go back in and read.
Okay. Max, you want to do it?
Yeah, I just want to go back. I think, Dan, what you were offering up here was another avenue for a volunteer to take in their giving of time and service. In other words, beyond the work that they do in their local county or within their state or section, they have an opportunity to be able to serve at a national level. But there's a barrier of entry, if you will, in order to be qualified to be able to do that, that means they're going to have to go through a certain amount of training. They're going to have some experience under their belt. And that's what you're looking for. That experience and training really shouldn't be anything that's new for these people. It should be something that they're already been doing. And it's not going to be there's not an attempt here to try to redefine what the curriculum is for each county and each state. There's no way that that could be mandated. In fact, I would fully suggest that training is never mandatory, right? It's as far as you want to take it. The more training and the more experience you develop as a volunteer, the more agile you become during a call out. Is that, again, what you're going after?
Yeah, we're after, from our standpoint, we like to plant some seeds, get some new blood going here, get some new direction going. As these people get trained and interested in disaster communications, hopefully they will go off to the areas that they want to go to, be it working at a OEM or working with their local sheriff to be whatever they're going to be, and they'll train to the level they need to be. But we got to get them started someplace. We got to get them going someplace. We don't start them at the top. We got to start them someplace. Once we get to a certain level, if they're really interested in being disaster communications, they will be available for these other organizations to work with. That is from our deal. Having the ability to work with each other on platforms like this, so we get to know each other, know what we're doing, what our values are, and this kind of stuff. I think that's important, and that's one of the things we're trying to aim here. Okay, I'm going to take on another one here. Robert, you want to take it?
Oh, how about that? Can you hear me now?
Hear you now.
Okay, great. All right, I'm going to take a breath because it's been a while. Number one, I'm Illinois, and my friends from Ohio and Missouri have had some interesting points of view. In the Midwest, it's a little bit different than the coast, of course, but not that much. I remember reading when the strategic plan started coming out, and there was a comment about ARES started in 1934, and for me, that was about all I needed to see. We need to get in the 21st century. The ARRL in general needs to step up and do whatever it can to make sure that the next generations, plural, of amateur radio operators actually know their equipment, know how to build things, know what an antenna is, how the antenna works, what to do with batteries, what to do with generators. That is amateur radio. And that's what the league should be doing. As far as ARES is concerned, in my opinion, we have an AUXCOM task book. We have a NIMS compliance standard for ESF2. By the way, if you are recognized as a person on that site, the incident site, you're a technical specialist. That's why your state's going to get 75% of $27. We as ARES leaders, and we really don't need to know again and again and again the field hierarchy and how the league was formed and all that. Sorry, really don't need to know that. What we really need to know, and we really need to figure out, is how do we encourage the development of soft skills for amateur radio operators to learn how to deal with people who don't know radio very well, who know how to take orders. Yes, I said the word orders, because you're going to go in and you're going to be the person who may be sweeping the floor or taking out the trash or running a message. And you may be doing that on an all-hazard incident, or you may be doing it at your county level where the EOC manager needs something done. Now that's something that the league and ARES should be doing. Okay, we really don't need another task book that looks like a Me Too also ran. What we need is a task book that develops those skill sets, the technical skill sets, all of them, more of them. Let's talk about mesh. Let's talk about all the things that you, Dan, have done so well bringing to the leadership. Let's get that out there. I think you're right, the new core manager, I assume that will be the emergency management person that's going to go into Newington. If it was me, I'd be running in terror probably by the end of the first week, but it's going to be rough, and there's just not going to be any way out of it, but that's just the way it is. But you know, let's face it, unfortunately, amateur radio is graying. We need new We need new folks. They need to know something more than how to take a Baofeng out of a box. They need to know how to program a phone on a radio on the fly. They need to not be afraid of anything. If somebody hands them a Starcom radio, I actually have a person, the Auxcom manager in Illinois, wants amateur radio operators to help that person, him, out with handing out and bringing back in Starcom radios because, quote, you know how to turn the radio on and it won't scare you. And when I tell you not to, say again?
No, I'm going to have to cut you short, but go ahead.
Okay, so let me just say this. I mean, I would like to see the collective opinion, because I think I'm hearing it here in this group, go back to the league and say, look, you really need to just adopt the concept of technical and personal training, and let the requirements, the NIMS compliance and all the rest of it take care of itself. That's my opinion. Thanks again, Dan.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Let me, at this point, take a breather and point out something here. This deal we're doing right now is the first step to the voices that you're giving out being heard by the ARRL. We really haven't had that in the past, and most of you are painfully aware of that. What we open up here is ability to be inclusive, to include all you folks, to get your opinions, your suggestions, and so forth, where they can be heard in one format or another through the ARRL. That's important. And most of you have had experience trying to get your messages you need there. We need to have that avenue, and that's one of the things we're trying to provide you here with. This platform is beautiful for that. So anyway, that's what we're trying to do there. Dan, you had your hand up there for a while. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm despairing that ARRL is ever going to meet everybody's needs here for performing even just a radio job in state or federal emergency management agency incidents. I think that the crust is, everybody has said the right things, but no one person has said them all. I think ARRL needs to focus on training and mentoring and Elmering radio operators, and those that want to affiliate with their local emergency management agencies need to take not just the full disclosure, I lack my 400 class. I was going to take it in May, but it's an EOC and it won't be available till the pandemic calms down. And I lack a couple of the professional development series, but I probably have 3 times as many of the NIMS classes as anybody except a part-time neighbor who sat down in 2 weeks and did all 62 of the independent study classes and is sort of learning how to be an amateur radio operator pretty independently. But he's got 4 homes in California in different places, so he doesn't participate with Aries in any of them. And how do I say it? People talk about amateur radio operators in EOCs, and I shudder. First of all, in an EOC isn't the right place to have a radio station. Second of all, the personal relationships are absolutely necessary for functioning when the chips are down and everybody's given up their normal avocation and they're working to solve an emergency or address an emergency or respond to an emergency. So it's interesting because this group represents everything that's needed in spades. And if we could get together and manage, it's never going to happen. But the training bits are important. And I think if ARRL is really listening, they're not going to pretend to be an AHJ and publish their own task book. They'll rely on whatever and that's another thing. So Auxcom has a task book, and it might just frighten some local authorities having jurisdiction. And those of you that are saying that, one of the problems is neither ARRL nor the American Red Cross is an authority having jurisdiction. Looking at the National Incident Management System Guideline for the National Qualification System, 2017, and I don't think it read quite like this in the 2008 NIMS. It must be a government agency, an agency with legislated authority to manage emergencies. So and a lot of you come from that background. So you know from where you speak, and we need to listen to you. The one common thing is WinLink. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, the most sparsely populated communities that have amateur radio operators who have been doing it for more than 6 months can come to understand the value of WinLink and why they should focus on acquiring that skill and the pieces and parts you need to put a bag together and go someplace else and do it. I guess that's really all I want to say, except I have fairly grave concerns about ARRL's corporate identity requiring that they maintain their trademarked Aries name and then trying to impose that on amateur radio operators because it's never going to fit locally or at the national or state levels. Thank you.
Okay, Dan, I appreciate that. One of the things that come to mind, there are different needs, different interests here and such like that going forward. We can break people off to separate rooms to work out issues, bring them back to discuss those issues. We can try to pull this together. We're going to have to get together to make all that work. But the needs there, I don't care where you're at or what you're doing, what your situation is, you have issues you want to resolve, you want to work with whoever they're working with, and you need, for a lot of times, you need to talk to whoever's with the ARRL. We need to have all that put together, and we need to have all the different interest groups be able to resolve how we're going to work this together. It's a big task. I alone can't do it, but all of you guys and us can. So anyhow, that's some of my thoughts on that. Lee, before I get the last two hands up, you wanted to read some stuff off the chat?
Yeah. Hold on just a second here. A lot of the questions in here are asked and answered. So let's see. Really, there's just a lot of agreement that maybe we should just do the Oxcom program and just leave it at that. There's a lot of that, and a lot of people are agreeing with that. But other than that, there's, let's see. Sorry, they fly by. No, sorry, Dan, go ahead. I'll find one and have it ready.
Okay, sounds good. One of the things we can do, and it's probably not to do it, but we can have these things where we can have polling to see who wants to do what, Oxcon, whatever. We find out what to do what and what people want to do what, so we can mix and match and make it work. Jack, go ahead and talk to us, please. KE4WT, LWT. KE4LWT, are you there?
Yes, I didn't know I had asked to say anything.
Okay.
Okay, we can move on. Marv, you want to pick it up?
Well, I'll be the curmudgeon, okay? And what I will say is this. I think a dose of reality is needed here. And I was disappointed. I appreciate your efforts, Dan, but I was disappointed, and several others' chat comments focused on the disappointment about cutting off the fellow from Washington State. He is the closest thing that you had here in any of the last 20 hours of discussions about this as being a served agency. And when he was saying what is needed, I've had a greater respect for his comments than a lot of other things that have been erroneous and irrelevant. Now, what I would say is a lot of this whole discussion is ass backwards, to be honest, because what has happened is the ARRL board, and with all due respect, a number of the section managers who claim to have MCOM experience, it was 20, 25 years ago And the world of emergency management and MCOM has changed tremendously during that period of time. So now the board has had a committee that has been interviewing and defining this MCOM director or emergency management director for the league, and created one set of expectations about what MCOM is, which may be absolutely different than what this group would want, and that may be entirely different than what the agencies want. So I find this process, while well-intentioned, to be very frustrating. So that's all I'll say.
I think most people can agree that the ARL needs to be brought to the 21st century. They move very slow, and when they get done, it isn't always at the best of interest to the membership and to the people that they're referring to there. I also strongly feel they need to be able to listen to the membership, have a path for that. So if you all remember when we did that emergency plan, they didn't get a lot of input from us. And that kind of stuff has to change. It needs to be meeting our needs out here. Let's go to somebody else. Brenton, yeah, go ahead.
Me, Brendan?
Yep.
Okay, let me turn on my video so you can see what my ugly mug. If I can, oh, this is what I'm doing. There we go. Okay. So I just wanted to share some recent experiences, and I'm not going to name names because I don't roll like that. But I interfaced with a pair of what I guess I would consider high-level Aries officials, basically asking a question about Auxcom and its relevance, or does the league have an official opinion or a statement about, well, I'll use an Auxcom term, the interoperability of Aries and Auxcom. And there's personal experience. I hosted the first Auxcom training in Virginia in 4 years this past November. And I had so many people from around the Commonwealth of Virginia that I could have hosted 6 Auxcom classes at 30 people per class. And I personally got a lot of good ideas about relationships and how to serve an agency properly, which is stuff that the ARL does not teach, but it's important stuff. And I just wanted to say that my level and our level here in Northern Virginia of frustration with a mixed message from the league and sort of shut off Auxcom, either as a solution or basic training how to interoperate, is really, really dissatisfying. And we're trying hard in Virginia to do it right, and just getting let down time and time again by local and national ARR leadership. I keep hearing people make comments about, specifically tonight, the comment was made about, they have their eyes on somebody for that emergency management position at the league. And I literally, within the last 24 hours, I spoke with 2 officials at the league about a bunch of different topics. And when I asked about that, they flat out denied that they were doing anything about that right now, that they were struggling to find somebody. So, communicate. Let us know what's going on. Repeatedly told that it's a bottom-up organization. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be picking on the ARRL. I'm a dues-paying member, and I will continue to be. I like their work with spectrum defense and all that other stuff. But as far as Aries goes, we are strongly considering finding another solution. And our local EM that we support doesn't really care what we're called or what the logo is. They just like our skill set and our personalities and the fact that we can get stuff done. And Dan, thank you for putting this effort together nationally and bringing us all together. I am personally learning quite a bit and getting to understand what other sections of the country need, because Northern Virginia needs are completely different than Idaho needs, and things like that. So I'm really enjoying meeting all these people, and this has branched my ability to make new friends out quite a bit. So thanks for that.
That is what you're saying is exactly what this thing is about, is getting to know each other, work with each other. As far as your frustrations with the league is, join the boat. I've had communications with two very close people tied with the Aries management position, and they are close. I can guarantee you that. They don't talk specifics. They get in a lot of trouble when they do, but
Okay.
that's where it's at. We have one
Okay,
hand.
I've got one from the chat.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, there is, the flip side of the coin, and there have been a lot of comments about where Aries fits in the community and where Aries fits serving the public and where Aries fits training new operators. And one comment from K4KTG, Tennessee again, Aries should stick to training operators to be effective operators. When we walk into the served agency's domain, we take off the Aries brand and put on the served agency uniform.
That's who we're serving, and whether it's a uniform you're putting on, as you refer to there, if we got a serve agency, we need to be able to serve those needs. And yes, this bucket has got, what can I say? We got a lot of branches here. We got to find a way of addressing it all. We're starting. This kind of format is a good way to start. We find a way to address these things individually and move it forward. I think it's important. Let's see here. Kenny, go ahead and take it.
Yeah. First, let me say, I want to say thank you to everyone. I'm really just an observer here because of the agency that I belong to, that I work with, Southern Baptist Disaster Relief, and my field, especially with them, is communications, obviously. So, but I do other things with our organization. We have different areas that we're trained in, different tasks and different teams that I belong to. But my specialty is communications. So one thing I want to say before I say anything else, anybody that I've heard tonight, anything that I've read tonight, any person in this group that I'm listening to, it would be an honor if any of you ever showed up where I was at somewhere and said, hey, I'm here to help. It would be an honor to have any of you come and help out. So I want to compliment you. You're all going in the right direction, and you're hungry, and you're pursuing your goals, and that makes you an advantage, or gives you an advantage and makes you an asset. But what I'm hearing from two or three of them have made statements tonight about, coming from a served agency and speaking for the served agency. Well, I can't technically do that because I'm just a little fella at the end of the system here in my group. But I can say that if speaking generally for our agency, and I would be a served agency, whenever you come in, I don't really care about, your badges, your training, your levels. I don't care about those things. They just really don't mean anything to me because I don't have time to really understand and discern what you're trying to communicate to me. I have a disaster. I have a problem. I have something that I'm trying to take care of. Maybe it's a kitchen. Maybe we're feeding meals and we need to make sure that our food is going to get to us. I just need to be able to look at you, Elizabeth, and say, Elizabeth, I need to know that there's 5 transfer trucks that are going to be able to, with the food, that are going to be able to get here tonight and what time they're going to arrive, so I can arrange personnel to unload those trucks at 2 a.m. in the morning. Let me know when you have that information. And, if it's a radio with a microphone, that helps me. I understand that as a ham. But if you've got a WinLink console sitting in front of you and you look at me and say, well, type your own message, into your smartphone, and it'll go into my WinLink console here, and it'll be sent, and your reply will be coming back to you in an hour or two. Check back with your smartphone, and understand there's no cell phone available to me out there. There's no, if you have that capability, that tells me that you are serving and that you are able to take care of my problems at a level that is off the chart for anything else for me. And I don't care which one you do at what level you do, but I'm just saying that you have that technical capability. It may be I look around at you and say, oops, somebody put gasoline in the diesel generator. How do we fix that? Okay, you know, and you have some technical expertise, you have some experience, you have a way, you have some knowledge of fixing that. So you're a person that I can look to as a resource and say help, and then get it. And you know, everybody on this talk tonight, everybody in this Zoom meeting or whatever it is we're doing here, man, you're just impressing me immensely. Okay, and I go back to my agency and I'll tell people that I work with, there's a group of people out there who are hungry to be involved, and they want to train, and they just want to make sure they do it right. And like the gentleman said just a minute ago, when you show up, don't care about your badges. Okay, I don't care about your training manuals. You know, I just want you to be able to jump right in here, and the ICS courses are a grand way to do this. It gets you connected. I want you to be able to jump right in here and say, okay, here I am. What do you want me to do? And with that, I'm going to shut up and as a guest again, compliment you and just sit back and enjoy the rest of the conversation.
All right, Kenny, thank you much. Yes, what you're looking at here is a lot of very passionate people, not only for the Aries part of the world or disaster communications that they're representing, but for the hobby that we are all representing. Lee, do you got something there?
Yeah, sorry. I think Dave, KM4FOX from Virginia wants to have a comment, and I think I missed his comments earlier. So Dave, if you want to go ahead and unmute, you can just go ahead and we'll count you as a raised hand.
Hello, Dave.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll see if I can contact him again.
All right, cool. Tom, you want to take it?
Sir, yes, sir. Just a quick interjection. So Kenny was on and made some very good points from the Baptist men. I've had experience with those guys, and to tell you the real truth, they preferred North Carolina over the Red Cross for a whole lot of reasons. But they're an ESF 6 group, and we need to support those folks. They are generally an ESF 2 consumer. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just simply saying in the hierarchy, and we need to respect that. And we do that in North Carolina and through the emergency management system and through the hierarchy. We maintain relationships there, strong relationships. But the one thing we don't want to lose sight of out here has been said by a number of people. Scott talked about it earlier, and Brendan talked about it from Virginia. The one thing we have to understand here is that the American Radio Relay League, no offense, I'm not trying to beat them up. I've been a member for more years than most people here have been alive. But they are not an authority having jurisdiction. They don't make the rules. They don't tell people in emergency management or anything in the ESF2 community what to do. They need to be a response group that looks at what's going on across the horizon, see if they can make a difference, see if they can identify gaps, or ask people like this good crowd here to help them identify gaps. They need to get out of the business of trying to influence or to command. They have no command authority, whatever. And stop worrying about their brand and selling orange shirts or whatever they're doing. They need to get down to the real business of serving this nation, which is not as an ESF2 HJ. They need to be a provider of skill sets and a big proponent. And for that, I would give them forever a big round of applause. Soapbox mode off.
Okay, Tom. Well, I appreciate your comments, and there's a lot of wisdom there. You're right. I think the ARL is very painfully aware of what they're dealing with, the things that they've done wrong, the things they've done right, and they're trying to right themselves. They really are, and it's a struggle because it's a struggle. It's just because of the environment they work in, and but you're right. They're trying to make a difference. Marty, you got your hand up. You want to take it?
Morning. WB3
Find the
MXM.
mute mic. Let me find the mute button. Okay, got a lot of, I only got a certain amount of real estate. I'd like to take a minute. I want to share this with everybody. Oscar, I owe you these org charts, I know, but I'm trying to get them in a better shape. But let me share something with all of you for a second. This was very handy. Host needs to allow me to share my screen. Whoever
Right.
hosting.
Try it now.
All right, thank you. Just a moment. All right, I hope you can see the screen now. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
All right. So this became very helpful. I took the ARRL appointment listing. I took all of the appointments that can be appointed and all of the hierarchy in the field operations area, and I organized it into a graphic because I was asked one time, what does your organization look like? And I can't really point to the audience and say, well, there it is. I started with the section, which is what you see in front of you, but I want to share the one with the Aries. At the top of the pile here is the SEC. And for our friends in VOADS and the gentleman who was speaking earlier, you'll see there's a direct dotted line from the assistant section manager to VOADS, COADS, served agencies, whatever you have in your town. But I showed this to one of my good friends in the VOAD community. I was participating in a large forum. And they said, well, can you explain to me what this is? I said, well, the columns on the left and the right are our counties, and we have them identified. I'm sorry, in the right, left, and the center are our counties in Maryland. And those counties are divided with our DECs, and information that flows to the counties from the local agencies would be shared with the DECs and up to the SEC and to the section manager. So if you need support in your county, all of these county representatives are available to you for doing those ancillary communication skills that you may need. And they said, well, that's great. We have always been in situations where we need to communicate. I said, well, how do you communicate now? And they said cell phones. And of course, I responded by saying, that's great. You're using a form of wireless communications. What I offer is another level of communications. And you've heard me say this before, Dan, that the way I see this is amateur radio is like an umbrella when it's raining. And that is, my analogy is you open it when you need it, you close it when you don't, but it's always there. And I've had 2 communications in the last 2 years with VOADs who have asked if I could help them with communications. And in both cases, we could do that. And I leave it up to my ECs, my DECs and my ECs to take care of their local needs. And I've said here before in this forum, it's all about that community. And I shared with you in my correspondence what I like to call whole community radio communications, whole community. And it's been mentioned here many times about communities. So I put in the chat window and I offer this challenge, Dan. You had 96 or more individuals in this group tonight,
Had
which
more than
means,
that. We had
okay.
115, I think, 110. Go on.
Okay. I don't care how you do the math. Divided by 5, by 10, or by 20. Even divided by 1. You have all of these very tenacious, competent individuals that have said numerous times tonight about let's get started. I'm going to offer this. Dan, I don't care what you give me. I'm a section manager. I have a huge staff. I have a rather small state, but an important state and district, but an important state and district because it's centrally located in many ways with the critical infrastructure of the nation. Rail, shipping, commerce, transportation, government agencies. I don't care what you pick, Dan. Give me something. Give me something to do. Because if you give me something to do, then I can reach out to others or others can reach out to me, which I would prefer. Hey, Marty, I had a gentleman here that worked for a federal agency, and my comment was, I don't have the phone list for all these federal agency EM managers, but it would be nice if I did. Just give me one task so I can move forward. As I said, measured results, right? You can't measure something if there's no activity. I could fail, I could have setbacks, but I plan to move forward. Just give me one thing to do. One thing, so every time I come to your meeting, I have something to report on. And if I can do that, then I can share those successes with others and hopefully mentor them to move forward. And this group will become viable. So if this chart helps you, I would suggest you can build one yourself. I don't have a template. This is mine. This has been these charts have been very useful when I talk to my served agencies. So I challenge you to give me a task and let me move forward with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Marty. I have your name down here is on top of the list. Throw mud. No. I hear you. We need to do more than what we're doing, and you will be involved. We got to speed things up a little bit. We're losing people here. They're getting bored. They're going to sleep on us. Ed,
Okay.
you want to take it? Oh, I'm sorry, Lee. Did I cut you off?
Well, I've got a guy that's been trying to raise his hand for a while, but we can take him in order. That's fine.
Well, if he's been trying, let's give him a go.
Okay, W7 Victor Oscar. Mike.
Thanks,
You
Oscar.
there? Yep.
There we go. Sorry, Dan. I've been trying to figure out how to raise my hand, but my only reactions I seem to have are clap or put my thumbs up. So I want to put a thumbs up. I want to put a thumbs up for this presentation. But a couple of comments here. If you guys don't know me, there's still about 90. Well, I guess we're down to 77. But Dan, the highest you got up to was about 124.
Yep.
And that's very impressive. I'm very. Last time I was on here, I think we were less than 100. But now you're really moving to the stars. A couple of comments. If you guys don't know me, I'm the Northwest Division Director. I think I'm the only director left on here. We also had Fred K7REX from the Northeastern Division, and we had a couple of vice directors on here earlier. So the ARRL is listening to what you guys are saying, and I'm definitely listening. I'm taking notes, and we can take that back and see what we're doing. But a couple of quick comments. Number one is, yes, we are bringing in a new Director of Emergency Communications. That a director level that reports directly to the CEO. It's a two-pronged approach. Prong number one is getting in the new MCOM director, and prong number two is getting in a new CEO. And one of the things that I'm definitely working on is to bring in a CEO that has the vision to be able to look to the future and understand and react to the requirements for building a good, strong Aries organization. And that has to do with creating relationships at the high level with FEMA, with the Red Cross, with all the served agencies that the ARRL has. Right now, that's a big void. And you know, although I applaud what Dan is doing here, I kind of mentioned what I think it was Robert reported earlier. It's kind of putting the cart before the horse. You got to have the leader at the top before all the guys at the bottom are figuring out what the heck they're going to do, because everybody's going to wind up going in a different direction. So I just ask people to be patient and wait till we get a good guy up. There are many candidates that we have that have long list of qualifications, both relationships at high levels with other organizations. I don't know who they're going to wind up with. I haven't seen that list. But the same thing with the CEO. You know, the idea is going to bring in a CEO that is a ham and will be able to work with you guys at a ham level and has a full understanding of the Aries and the importance of the Aries program. So I just ask everybody to be patient. This COVID thing has slowed things down a bit. We're supposed to be interviewing CEO candidates actually next week. We were supposed to be interviewing them one-on-one as we prepared for the board meeting. That isn't going to happen now because the board meeting is going to be a Zoom meeting just like this. Several of the directors want to interview our CEO directly one-on-one instead of just talking to him over the phone, and I can certainly see the reason for doing that. It's an extremely important position. So I accept the criticism of the ARRL, and all I can tell you is that there is we're working to correct the deficiencies, and we're really working to get in leaders that are going to be able to lead the organization forward and not look so much into the past. So that's all I had, Dan. Thank you.
No, I thank you, Mike. Appreciate it very much. There was a comment here from, no, I'm losing it here. You're right, Lee. Keeping up with this thing is, yeah. Lee, you want to read off what Fred at K7REX said to us here in the chat?
Yeah, sorry, I just did some typing, so I'm off of that screen again. I apologize.
No, I understand.
Let's see. Yeah, there's like 6 or 7 comments since then. So let me go up here. I'm sorry, Fred. It's here. Okay. So K1VR director agrees that W7VO director is correct. Your ARRL board is listening intently.
There's a lot to that, folks. And this is what we're trying to do here. We've not had a mechanism in the past, and we got a mechanism now. It may become something else at some point, but right now, this is what we got. So the league is listening to us, and you're important. And what Mike says is true. We're getting a new management. We can do certain things, but when he gets on board, I'm hoping we'll see the leadership that's going to make us all a lot happier, a lot prouder of what we're doing here. Are there any more out there that you need to read to us, Lee?
I'm sorry. Let's see. Happy to be patient. The ARRL is a service organization, and we have to pay attention to what the local authorities are looking for. We develop education and leadership, but we are not in charge.
Well put. Well put.
Dan?
Yes, sir.
What I want to do is reinforce that last statement. And I believe that when they were looking at interviewing potential candidates for the position, as far as I'm concerned, personally as a director, I'd be looking for somebody that definitely believes that the ARES organization is a bottom-up organization. Here in my local county here in Columbia County, Oregon, we work at the pleasure of our served agency, which is the County Emergency Management, and they direct, as everybody has indicated on here, they direct what we do. And that has to be done at the ARRL level too. But at the same time, we have to have those high-level relationships with FEMA, Red Cross, and other served agencies at the league level, and that's the part I think he's going to be focusing on. And I don't see him getting down and meddling down with what Dan's doing in Idaho or what Marty's doing in MDC. I think it's going to be more at a high level. And what you got to do, Dan, is get everybody together, and when he gets on board, is have this exact same conversation you're having now with him. And bring him in here, and I'm sure he'd be glad to join you guys.
I think so.
And the CEO too.
Yes, I got a call today. I'm reluctant to say who it was from, but they said in regards to the Aries manager, give him 30 days. He wanted me to give him 30 days. I'm not in a position to give anybody anything, but that's what he's saying. So it's very close. We need to give him that lateral and give him that chance. We as a group need to be able to communicate. This is one way of doing it. They certainly, when we got numbers like we've had coming up, this is certainly the way to do it. So we need to keep this stuff going. We also need programs like we've had, like the Wind Lake program and a dozen others we've had. We need to keep those things going. Those are interesting, very informative things. We need to keep those going. We have a lot of things in our task book, and we're going to need a lot of help to pull them off. Lee, I will give it back to you one more time and see what you got.
No, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, Dan.
The other Dan has a question.
Yeah, I was going to get to Dan next here. Hello, Dan.
Yeah, sorry, I try to keep myself muted and I'm never successful. I'm talking again. I wanted to compliment the Northwest director. Thank you for listening. And I'm actually quite reassured that the directorate is listening. You mentioned, though, that the pandemic was slowing down things at ARRL, particularly the selection of the emergency management director and the CEO. And I guess in a corporate environment, that makes sense. But please be cognizant that if it weren't for the pandemic, and this is a question that K7REX can answer, if it weren't for the pandemic and Zoom, would we all be talking today?
Yes.
Because I think it has sped up what Aries needs in open discussion immensely. I don't think we'd have been here in 10 years without something like the pandemic forcing us to use Zoom, and then you fortunately recognizing it could be used on a national level.
To answer your question, I started this back in late January, early February, before the pandemic, before the virus thing. I had the idea when I was back in Connecticut, and I saw, hey, there's something wrong here. I've already been at SM for a while. I saw the breakdown in communications. I saw the problem, and then I saw Zoom as a possible solution. The original intent was strictly with the SMs. That lasted for a while, and then we got into Aries conversations, and that had to open up for you guys to get in there, and that's how we got here today. I don't know if we have as much participation now or not, but it would still have happened because this started up before the virus even was known.
Thank you very much. That makes me feel a lot better about maybe ARRL is just not professionally dragging their feet, and something good will start happening because the field is speaking. Thanks.
Yes, that is happening. I know personally of things that we've discussed in the SM side of the world that the directors have taken directly to the various responsible people to make it go through. We are being heard. Our videos that we send out are being watched. Are we making everybody happy? That will never happen. But we're making enough happy to make a difference, and this has got to keep moving forward. Ed, you got a question there.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ed, KW4GF. I'm the Virginia PIC, and I want to shout out, you had 3 of our great strategic plan developers from the Commonwealth of Virginia, Brendan, Jack, and Wayne. Brendan, Jack, and Greg were here tonight. And you have the Virginia Aries PIC here tonight. And I see there's a lot of Virginia representation here tonight. The 2 things I want to bring up, and I've heard through all of the problems in our country the last 4 months, and I keep hearing the words, I hear you, I'm listening. And you know something? ARRL does do that because I've had interactions with them. Now, what I do suggest is, I used to be an elementary principal and a teacher. When they're approached, a simple bulleted plan, an initial plan, a start plan that this group gets to see before they're approached, maybe developed by Dan, maybe from appointees from each division, and then bring it up to this group, and this group possibly somehow sign on to it, brought to the new manager as a discussion piece that is representative of everyone. That's a suggestion. When I was a principal, I didn't want anybody just to come in and talk to me. I wanted a plan. They wanted something done. I needed a plan, a written plan. This one doesn't have to be specific because we're too broad here, but it can be talking points that are important and written that all of us can see. The other line, by the way, I did enjoy the last few speakers, including our division director, and I also enjoyed listening to our MDC section manager, Marty, because they were on point. We are in the 21st century, and therefore I heard one of our speakers, and I agreed with him on his points, but he did say, we're in the 21st century and then ARRL needs to. Well, the way I feel is we're in the 21st century and we need to. Not ARRL, we need to. And you can't do this alone, Dan. When I was leading my club, I didn't do it alone. I had a board, and you know something? I had Tea Party Republicans and liberal Democrats sitting next to each other, and we never had a problem. So the issue is that I believe that you need help, and I do believe that through a very simple bulleted plan from representatives from each division, talking to people within their sections, and then bringing it to ARRL is a very simple beginning talking point for you, signed off by everybody, will enable you to have that kind of power when you go in. I will tell you that I worked basically in an elementary school through my whole career, and frankly, if I unleashed my elementary school on the ARRL, they'd have that thing done in 30 seconds. So that's my speak for the night. It's great meeting you all. Thank you for a very enlightening evening tonight. And by the way, I'm a generalist. I'm not an NCOM. I'm not a special event. I'm not a contester. I do it all. And I'm a rag chewer, as you can tell. But I enjoyed tonight, and thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you for the kind remarks. You're absolutely right. No, I don't work alone. I spent most of the afternoon with the meeting and some of the people that I have the highest respect for to help for the night's meeting, to help get things going there. I talked with my director. I talked to other people at the other directors. I talked to officers of the league. And the idea is we want to be in concert with the league. We want to work with them. Everybody is on board that we need change. And it's an all-way thing. We are the ARRL, all of us. And so that we need to all change, and we're working on that as a collective group, but I'm not working alone. I want to make that clear. And I get a lot of direction. Sometimes they tell me where to go, but I get a lot of direction. Okay, Lee, you got anything?
No, go ahead. It's mostly wrap up in the chat. So no, I think we're good.
We've been at, yes, it's this gets me more and more common that these things last this long, but it's important that we hear everybody. And if I cut somebody off, I really apologize. That was never my intent. Sometimes time is a frame, and we've got so many people here. But I think hopefully we've heard everybody.
There were several comments in the chat that they would like to hear more from different agencies, certain agencies maybe, or different agencies. That can't be a function of what we do, but we can pass that along.
Sure. We have our limitations, and that's just how it is. But yes, pass it along. There were some in this deal, and there'll be some getting a copy of this video. So anyway, are there any more comments anywhere?
Marty, Maryland.
Sure, go ahead, Marty.
You'll have to help me understand. So I save the chat window locally because there's a lot. This multitasking is just beyond my ability. I've got a limited amount of, stop. I've got a limited amount of real estate on this laptop. So I kind of copy the chat window by hitting the file save button. Do you save that too? I mean, I know you save the video online. Do you save the file chat window?
Yes, they come down with when it goes in the recording video. We also get a copy of the chat window.
Okay, and there's really no way okay, all right, no, you answered my question because it's very useful as an after action for me. It's nice to watch the video, but the chat window, it provides a bit of fidelity in what we do here, and it almost becomes an action plan. So for example, I mentioned in the chat window an action list for you and for others, as it was mentioned by the division director, to create talking points for the league, propose a plan for HQ, coordinate with the division directors, have comments from the section managers, and then schedule far enough advance with HQ. If if it would be helpful to have an action plan. I've been on several of these meetings, Dan. I guess I'm just old and begrudging. To have, I see you smiling, Lee. To have an action list so that I'm capable of crossing off what we have covered because it's been discussed and agreed upon. And then if there are other actions that are pending with decision making, we could serialize that list, never removing or only removing things that have been decided on and moving it into a inaction list and continuing on with our action list. I hear words traction, move forward. Not that I don't mind, I really enjoy these conversations, but I'd like to focus on, I want to focus on either doing this process in waterfall or in agile. I don't care how, what process, RACES, any of the known, I know, say Dan smile, any of the known mechanisms of running an organization. If we adopt those, we will show that tendency of professionalism. I don't care where you start, but saving videos and looking at chat windows doesn't fulfill my needs. So I want.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
All right. So Dan, I'm gonna put you on the spot. When are you gonna start? No, Dan. Are you gonna start before the next meeting? No, Dan. Let me say one more. Are you gonna make sure you got a plan together, or at least a framework or a boilerplate before we have another meeting? And if you are, who's on that committee to do it? Dan?
I hear you asking me the questions, and the answer is just yes. We probably will recruit you. I got about 6 people in there right now that are actively in part to help guide that thing. We need the input, but we need to keep it a small group so we can make sense of it. It will happen, I promise.
Okay. All right. Here, I'm going to volunteer. What are you going to give me to do? Now you're smiling. See, you're smiling again because all of these people on here haven't volunteered to do anything.
They haven't yet. They haven't yet. That's in the planning.
No. We're beyond planning, Dan. We're beyond planning. We've been planning for months.
No, we've been doing presentations for months. We have been doing other things for months. We haven't gotten to this point until now, and that's where we are right now. So that's what we got to go do.
So we're going to start on the talking points for the league.
We're going to start on the talking points that came up from these groups.
Okay, when do you want to start? Tomorrow?
I'm going to get together with my team and see how they want to format this and then do that. That is not my decision alone. Like I said, I'm the bus driver. There's a whole gobble of people in this bus that tell me where we want to go.
Okay. All right. I've got to run, folks. But hey, Dan, a plan.
Yes, a plan. The plane.
And add that to the chat, or add that to the video conference. So while we're talking, you'll have that sort of moving picture that says, okay, here's the plan. I'm going to send it to you. Let's talk about, everybody has it now, open it for me. Let's talk about number 1. Then if you do that with 156 tenacious individuals, you'll have success.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, I thank you. Good comments. Good comments. Are there anything else?
I think Dave, our original presenter, said he had some comment he wanted to make. That would be KM4FOX.
Okay.
Dave, are you ready?
Yes,
there you are. Go ahead.
Well, I was at the Pentagon, and there was a couple things that I interjected in here. No one had ever reached out to the Mars station to find out if they needed anything. They didn't even really know each other existed. And so I managed the new agency's telecommunications program, and that agency owned responsibility for E911, radar, threatening international nuisance calls, landlines, circuit actions, the whole gamut. And so although Mars Station is open source and people can hear what you're saying, it still played a valid part. So in the effort to build relationships, is the ARRL or this group looking to build relationships with organizations or people or individuals where they don't exist? Does that make sense?
As this goes forward, we have a lot of things to explore going into. Once we get the new manager on board, it's going to make a lot of things possible that is not possible right now. You know, what that he or she decides. I think it's very pertinent to us that either from the league itself, where it should be coming from, that we make those arrangements, we make that communications. At the same time, it's very important that us, all of us, communicate our needs and where we stand with all those decisions and what we would like to see happen.
So I appreciate that, being sort of the new kid on the block. I've always sort of ran into that aspect. Well, you know, you've only done this for so long. You know, the 911 system, you know, that was the first 911 system I ever managed, and telecom in general. And so I was asked to oversee the radar system. The first white noise system I implemented was in the conference room of the Air Force One complex. So I'm not new to breaking new ground and fixing stupid, but I just think that a lot of dynamics that you all are dealing with ARRL are the same things that I had to deal with at the Pentagon. You know, it had been around for 60 years. And so this new guy, by the way, I was invited to the Pentagon, invited there and did the anti-terrorism homework mandated by Congress for the law enforcement agency that was trying to be stood up to get this. And so I did those mandates, and then they asked me to stay. So that included financial oversight over Kim Bio. You know, I took over the mail screening program after the Army let anthrax in the building. And so you're dealing with arrogance, you're dealing with ego and people who have control on stuff. And so I'm sometimes reluctant to try to say something because this is your jungle. But, you know, Ed and John brought me into your jungle. And so one thing I gave, and John is chewing on it, looking at it, is resources of people, places, organizations with all of their contact stuff that can be utilized to build relationships with all the people who are, you know, overseeing, like in counties and local government and radio stations and media. It's something I do, and not just to make it just for Virginia, but includes all 50 states.
Dave, can I make a comment on that?
Yep.
You might. Yeah, one of the things that I've experienced, certainly not like what you are talking about, but in Aries, we have been dealing with some disappointments and a lot of people saying, well, we've done that, tried that, or this is the way we've always done it, and that kind of thing. So on that level, I can relate to what you're saying. One of the things that, you know, there's been a lot of frustration about Aries Connect and things like that. So I hope we don't get stuck into those areas when we really need to be working together and moving forward. So I just wanted to tell you I can relate to that, even though I've never seen the Pentagon. So
yeah, it's I think it's hard for some to say, well, there are 25,000 people there. You know, what makes you different than those 25,000 people who had stars and things? I said, well, Pete Pace calls me Dave, and the Sergeant Major of the Army calls me Dave, and the Commandant of the Marine Corps calls me Dave. So, you know, what's your point? So getting over the hurdle of, hi, I'm Dave, I'm here to help you, you know, let's get the next step sort of thing. But you know, then people want to pigeonhole people and say, well, you're just this. Well, the Department of Defense does not call a person, please come help, and then ask them to stay and fully funds a GS career unless they knew that they could do it. Because even at that level, it's all about them. And I get that, but this is my island. You know, it's my country. So you're gonna fly airplanes and buildings that are part of my country? Watch out, I'm gonna get you. So I single-handedly managed all of those programs by myself, no team.
And I can appreciate all the hard work too. And I think, I think that I think that we have some hard work ahead of us, but very rewarding.
Yes,
And
we
you
do
are
have.
great people. You're a great people. So I appreciate that.
All right, appreciate that very much. Very good words there, Dave. And thank you for, again, he's the one who was the mastermind behind the thing I read off earlier. His was a little different in some areas. We cut and paste and added some of our own stuff. He did a great job, and we appreciate what he's doing. I think we better start wrapping this up. We got a lot of work to do here, a lot of